medical virology, and as usual, the code is BMLS 4005. So currently we are in the unit 1. Let us see the syllabus again. So in the unit 1, we have this introduction to virology, medically important viruses, structure, classification of viruses, multiplication of viruses, then collection, transport, and storage of viral samples for viral diagnosis. Then in the unit 2, we have staining techniques. So when we are saying staining techniques, always keep in mind we will use this H&D staining. So the purpose of H&D staining is to visualize the inclusion bodies. Intranuclear and intracytoplasmic inclusion bodies can be visualized by using this H&D staining that we already discussed. Then the other one is processing of samples for viral culture, such as egg inoculation, tissue culture. This we discussed. Egg inoculation and tissue cultures we discussed. Then rapid diagnosis of viral infections with special reference to HIV, HBV, HCV, and EIA, equine encephalitic infection. This I will discuss. Then I would also like to jump into your unit 6. There are mentioning of viruses in another unit. Let me check here. Okay, in the unit 6, they said about a recent pandemic outbreak of viruses and fungal infections. Uh, okay, recent pandemic outbreaks. That means COVID 19. We will discuss COVID 19 in the unit 6. So, this is your syllabus. Mm, the syllabus is okay. Actually, they didn't mention the individual viruses like polio, rabies, Ebola, influenza. So I was just thinking, how can I relate that with this syllabus? Anyway, let us see later. That is next week problem. Anyway, so as of today, అన్నిట్లో యాడ్ చేశాను. ఎస్, మన ఎంఎల్టీలో అన్ని. ఎస్, ఫస్ట్ 145లో టీచర్స్ దగ్గర వాళ్ళని కూడా యాడ్ చేశాను, ఆ ముగ్గురిని. టీమ్స్లో మన టీచర్స్లో ఆ ముగ్గురిని 3 టీమ్స్లోనే యాడ్ చేశా. ఫస్ట్ అయితే అది ఇండివిజువల్ ఫ్యాకల్టీ చేసుకోవాలి. ఒకసారి మెంబర్స్లో చూస్తే ఉంటారు వాళ్ళు. Anyway, sorry for the disturbance. Coming to the point. So in the last lecture, we discussed about detection of viruses. Okay, so I'm just going directly to the topic. We know all these basics, right? Uh, discussed replication, everything, viral cultivation. We discussed embryonated egg, then HeLa cells, continuous cell lines. And in the yesterday's class, we discussed about detection of viruses. A quick revision of detection of viruses. So, upon replication or upon cultivation of virus in the tissue cultures or in the animal inoculation, in order we need to detect the virus, and in order to detect the virus, we will opt any one of this method. So, either we can approach with cytopathic effects. We have four cytopathic effects means they are the change in the tissue morphology upon infected by virus. So we have many types of cytopathic effects like syncytium formation, then cellular necrosis, cellular clumping, roundening of cells, which is shown by various types of viruses like measles, syncytium formation, polio and enteroviruses, hepatitis B for necrosis, then clumping is shown by adenovirus clumping. Then herpes viruses will show rounding of cells. Then inclusion bodies, we have intranuclear and intracytoplasmic inclusion bodies, whereas nuclear are further divided into acidic and basic, and both acidic and basic are further divided into Cowdry type A, Cowdry type B. So they are the inclusion bodies. And few examples of inclusion bodies are Negri bodies seen in rabies infection. Okay. Then heme absorption test. Heme absorption test is done specifically for the identifying of red blood cell agglutinating viruses such as influenza virus. So presence of influenza virus in the tissue cultures can be detected by using heme absorption test, where we will add 2 to 3 drops of blood to the culture media. If there is influenza means the blood will clump immediately. Clumping of blood indicates presence of clumping virus in the culture media such as influenza. Then interference test. Interference test is based on the idea that only one virus can inhabit a single cell. So no two viruses can present in a single cell. So depending upon this principle, we can able to detect a non-cytopathogenic non-inclusion body virus via this interference test by addition of a challenge virus such as measles or non-cytopathogenic virus. So non-cytopathogenic viruses can able to detect it with the help of cytopathic virus. That's it. Then transformation. So upon getting infected by the viral infection, the cells will transform their morphology. They will convert columnar cells will convert to squamous, or they will underwent morphological changes. So this phenomenon is called transformation, which is commonly seen in carcinogenic viruses. That means herpes viruses. Herpes viruses will show this cellular transformation. Then immunofluorescent test. Immunofluorescent means here we will label an antibody with a color compound such as fluorophore, and this antibodies will be directed towards the viral antigen. So this antibody will bind to the viral antigen, and we can able to see the virus indirectly under the UV microscope. So that is the idea of this immunofluorescent test. So these are the 6 methods of detection of viruses. Okay. Mm, a quick questions. Cellular clumping is shown by what virus, students? What virus will show cellular clumping?
Adenosine
Adenovirus.
virus.
Very good. Adenovirus. Okay. Adenosine, that's the DNA. Okay. Fine. Then, uh, okay. Herpes viruses. What type of inclusion bodies you can see in herpes virus? Type of inclusion body in herpes viruses. Can you tell me types of inclusion body in herpes virus? Do you have any idea what type of inclusion bodies we can observe in herpes virus?
So intranuclear,
Intranuclear, acidic or
acidophilic
basic?
type A,
Very
acidophilic
good.
type A.
Cowdry type A, okay, herpes simplex.
Yes, sir.
Cowdry type A, acidophilic intranuclear. Very good. So, like this, you need to be in touch with this subject, okay? If not, you will forget everything. So, daily do at least 5 minutes of revision. That 5 minutes is enough. Just look an overview on topic, so you can at least remember for the coming exams, if not lifetime. Uh, These are the various morphologies of various types of inclusion bodies like Negri bodies, Guarnier bodies, Bollinger, Henderson, Peterson, Adeno, herpes, chickenpox, yellow fever, and poliomyelitis, polioviral inclusion bodies. Then these inclusion bodies can be detected by using H&E staining. So we know that H&E staining principally is about the pH differences between nucleus and cytoplasm. So hematoxylin and eosin will bind to the respective opposite pH components of the cell. Acid will bind to the base and base will bind to the acid.
Adenovirus.
Hmm? All right. Next, heme absorption test, HIV, influenza viral detection, then interference test to detect non-cytopathogenic virus, transformation to detect cancer viruses such as herpes viruses, then immunofluorescence to detect any virus. Any viral antigen can be detected by using immunofluorescence tests. So this is all about detection of viruses. And in today's lecture, I will discuss in detail on pathogenesis of viral infection. Now keep in mind students, there is a major difference between replication of virus and pathogenesis of virus. Okay, never confuse with replication with pathogenesis. Okay, so Today I will discuss about pathogenesis of viral infection. So is everyone paying attention? Shall we start this topic?
Yes, sir.
Perfect.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So today let us discuss about this pathogenesis of viral infection. So first is first, the meaning of pathogenesis means, see, patho, that means disease. Genesis means the meaning of genesis is always development. How a disease is developed, how a viral disease will gradually develops in our body. It is the study of development of a disease. Study of development of a disease. Keep in mind, it is not study of this one contaminate spreading of disease. It is all about development of disease within a single individual. Okay, how a viral disease will occurs in humans. Now there are certain uniformity. All viruses will have a same method of infecting humans with minute changes, but all viral pathogenesis have a similar approach. That is why this pathogenesis has been standardized, relatively standardized for viral infections. So typically what happens whenever a virus infected into a body, that let us see. So pathogenesis of a viral infection. Now students, understand viral pathogenesis, first you should understand chain of infection. Do you remember what is chain of infection? First we will have a pathogen, then pathogen will have a reservoir. From reservoir, pathogen will exit, portal of exit, then portal of transmit, route of transmission, portal of entry, susceptible host and getting infection. So always infection starts with a portal of entry, how the virus enters into the body. Okay, so route of entry, virus can enter either by respiratory tract into the lungs, or alimentary tract into the stomach or intestine, or into genital, orogenital regions, or via skin, or via eyes, conjunctiva. So these are the routes of viral entry into the body. Virus either can enter via respiratory, stomach, genital, skin, or conjunctiva. For example, respiratory virus like COVID-19. So coronavirus will enter into our body via respiratory route, whereas rotaviruses, rotaviruses and poliovirus will enter into our body via stomach, elementary, via contaminated food. Whereas sexually transmitted viruses like HIV and herpes viruses will enter our body via genital region because their route of transmission is sexual routes. Then smallpox, measles, mumps, such skin blister causing viruses will enter via skin, okay, like smallpox and conjunctiva. So other viruses like cytomegalovirus. So few viruses can also spread via eyes. So just by exposing our eyes to this virus itself can be uh, can cause a viral infection. So these are the routes of entry of virus. Now, no matter whatever the route is, once the virus entered into the body, we already know viruses are organ specific. Say, for example, hepatitis virus only attacks liver. Poliovirus always attacks spinal cord. Smallpox always attacks skin. So all viruses have their target organ in the body. Before reaching to the target organ, they will induce certain modifications in the body. They will induce certain disturbances in the body before they are reaching to the target organ. Say, for example, let us take hepatitis. Okay, so hepatitis usually enters via genital region. So hepatitis is also a sexually transmitted disease. Whenever there is an unprotected sex with any infectious person, then there is a likelihood of getting hepatitis transmission via genital region. So, okay, and we know that hepatitis target organ is always liver. So, how this hepatitis virus migrates from the genital region to the liver? Now, hepatitis entered into the body. Now, hepatitis will replicate in the primary site. So it will temporarily replicates in the urethra of the male or female genital region. Okay, so first virus will replicate, then it will gain access into the nearby lymph nodes. Upon replication, virus will gain access to the nearby lymph nodes. We have lymph nodes in all our body, right? We have many lymph nodes. So now the virus will migrate towards the nearby lymph nodes. So virus will go to the nearby lymph nodes and it will multiply again. Virus will multiply in the lymph nodes. Okay. After multiplication, this is very important. First time, this virus will release into the blood. After replication of virus in the lymph nodes, virus will release into the blood. And this is called primary viremia. In primary viremia, first time virus gained access into the blood circulation. That is called primary viremia. During this primary viremia, we will experience all flu-like symptoms. We will experience nausea, lack of appetite, sneezing, runny nose, headache, uh, body pains occurs due to this viremia actually. Irrespective of any virus, once the virus gains into the blood, we will experience this flu-like symptoms. So that is why all viruses will have similar signs and symptoms actually, like muscle ache, body pains, nausea, fever, mild fever. All these are viral mediated symptoms. Okay, so that is how we will say, I got viral disease. I'm experiencing viral symptoms. I have a flu attack. That indicates all those flu symptoms occurs due to this primary viremia or when the virus is in the blood. Okay. Now, fine, virus entered into the blood. Now, after entering into the blood, now this virus will go to the three important organs. These three organs together called as central foci. Central foci. Okay. Or these three organs are also associated with a system called reticuloendothelial system. I haven't discussed much about reticuloendothelial system with you in the physiology because this system is closely related with immunology. So reticuloendothelial system is it it comprises of three important organs that include spleen, bone marrow, and liver. Spleen, bone marrow, liver together called as central foci. So now this virus will replicate in spleen, bone marrow and liver. During this time, you won't feel, see, due to liver infection, 1 second students. Due to this liver infection, we won't feel appetite. Okay, due to lack of digestive secretions, we won't feel much hungry. Then, due to bone marrow infection, we will underwent anemic condition. So, due to anemia, obviously we will feel weak. Okay, then a spleen infection. Virus can also cause spleen, resulting in hemolysis. So bilirubin levels will gradually increases in the blood. So this is what happens in the primary viremia. So in the primary viremia, virus will migrate to the spleen, bone marrow, and liver. Then virus will replicate again in these three organs. Then upon replication in spleen, bone, and liver, virus will again enter into the blood. This second entry of virus into blood is called as secondary viremia. Compared to the primary viremia, secondary viremia will have more symptoms. Patient will become even more worse. He will have more body pains, more things. Okay. So secondary viremia will cause even more discomfort in the patient. So that is secondary viremia. After secondary viremia, now the virus will go to its target organ. If it is a hepatitis, it will go to the liver. If it is a chicken pox, it will go to the skin. If it is a polio, it will migrate to the spinal cord. So after secondary viremia, the virus will migrate to the target organ. So this is the pathogenesis of a viral infection. First, virus will enter into the body. either by respiratory route, elementary genital skin or conjunctiva. Then it will replicate in that site, and it will gain access into lymph nodes. It will release into blood, causing primary viremia. From primary viremia, it will migrate to the spleen, bone marrow, liver. It will replicate again. Again, it will release into the blood, resulting in secondary viremia. After secondary viremia, virus will go to the target organ and it will cause distinctive lesions and infections. If it is hepatitis, it will cause liver infection, polio, spinal cord infection. So this is the pathogenesis of viral infection. And the same thing I given in the right side also. Entry, primary replication, spread, primary viremia, secondary viremia, then target organ. Okay. So this is the pathogenesis. Same pathogenesis, students. In the textbook, they given almost 3 pages of information. I summarized into this flow chart, but in textbook they have given in detailed thing like what viruses will spread through respiratory tract, the viruses that will spread through elementary, viruses that spread by genital skin, conjunctiva. So they have classified individual viruses with individual routes. Okay, so for example, some of the respiratory tract viruses are influenza, parainfluenza, measles, mumps, rubella, rhino, adeno, corona. All these cytomegalo Epstein-Barr virus will enter into our body via respiratory route. Then elementary tract viruses are polio, coxsackie, hepatitis A, E, rotaviruses. Then skin viruses include herpes simplex 1, HBV, HCV, HIV, HTLV, human T cell lymphoproliferative virus 1. Then rabies infection can spread via skin. Genital viruses that include herpes viruses, hepatitis B, hepatitis C, HIV, and conjunctiva, few enteroviruses. Okay, then they are started discussing very boring things like how a virus will migrate into the lungs. What are the viruses like rhinoviruses, coronaviruses, measles, rubella? Individual viral replication they discussed here. This is not necessary, but you just have a brief overview. At least you should able to tell one viral example for this thing. Okay, like coronavirus or influenza virus, respiratory tract. Okay, then elementary tract, polio virus, best example. Skin, smallpox, genital, HIV and HBV, hepatitis B virus, conjunctiva, few enteroviruses. Okay, then um, congenital viruses. What is the meaning of this congenital viruses? That means these viruses will cause infection to a growing fetus in a pregnanted woman. These viruses always kill fetuses. These viruses won't cause any infection in the adults, but these viruses only cause infection to the growing babies. Their target organ will be a fetus actually. That means obviously women are prone to these viral infections. If women have such virus, that the virus that can able to kill a fetus, those viruses are called as teratogenic viruses. Teratogenic viruses won't cause infection in the healthy adults. They say, for example, if I'm a woman, if I got infected by rubella, rubella is a teratogenic virus, or cytomegalovirus is a teratogenic. This virus will reside in me, but uh, it won't cause any infection in my in a woman body. But once the woman becoming a pregnant, now the virus will migrate to the fetus and it will destroy the fetus. There is a high chance of abortion or miscarriage because of these viral infections. And the viruses that leads to miscarriage or fetal death, those viruses are called as teratogenic viruses, or they are also called as congenital viruses. These viruses will cause infections in the developing fetuses. Okay. Best examples are rubella and cytomegaloviruses. So, a pregnant woman with rubella and cytomegalovirus, there is a possibility of getting abortion because of this virus infection. Okay, so they are called as congenital viral infections. Then incubation period, I already said, right? So the to to establish a permanent infection in the target organ of the body, the virus requires some time, and the time that is taken for the virus to establish a disease is called as incubation period. Okay, so the time taken for the virus to establish a disease can be stated as an incubation period, and this incubation period varies from virus to virus. Okay, um, like coronavirus, it is around 7 days, whereas HIV 2 to 3 years, hepatitis virus, hepatitis B around 6 months, pox infection with 1 to 2 days. Within 2 days, you will incubation period is very less. Within 2 days, you will get infection. So this is called incubation period. And um, I I remember I said incubation period from the perspective of a single cell also. The time the virus attached to the cell and the release of baby viruses can be stated as an incubation period. So uh, I emphasize that in respect of a single cell. But here I'm telling about a establishment of a disease, signs and symptoms in the patients. Okay, so both are same only. So where the single cell that I have shown in that previous slides is a target cell. Okay, to uh, to reach the target cell, a virus requires certain time period, and this time can be stated as a incubation period. So significance of incubation period. So incubation period has a significance. Upon understanding the incubation period, we can able to prevent um, the cross contamination of the viral infection in the community. So by understanding the incubation period, we need to identify the individuals who have likelihood of getting infection, and they need to be isolated, they need to be quarantined so that they won't spread the virus into the community. So incubation period will give us a time to treat the patient. Okay. So yes, so this is all about pathogenesis of viral infections. Okay, pathogenesis of a viral infection. So pathogenesis happens in these stages. So, so can anyone explain me this thing, students? Pathogenesis in Hindi? Any one of you? Viral pathogenesis?
यस सर.
Yes.
सो फर्स्ट वायरस जो है हमारी बॉडी के अंदर एंट्री करेगा थ्रू एनी फ्रॉम दिस लाइक रेस्पिरेटरी ट्रैक्ट, जेनाइटल ट्रैक्ट, थ्रू स्किन. फिर उसके बाद हमारे ब्लड में जाके लिम्फ नोड में जाके मल्टीप्लाई होगा. उसके बाद वो ब्लड में आएगा वायरस मल्टीप्लाई होने के लिए. फिर वो दोबारा स्प्लीन में जाके, बोन मैरो में जाके, लिवर में जाके, इन तीनों में से जाके उनमें मल्टीप्लाई होगा. उसके बाद दोबारा वो ब्लड स्ट्रीम में आएगा वायरस, और उसके बाद अपने टारगेट ऑर्गन पे जाके वो रेप्लिकेट होगा.
Very good, Mohini. Good. So this is all
और
about
सर जब वो फर्स्ट टाइम एंट्री करते हैं तो उसको प्राइमरी वर्मिया बोलते हैं. वो जब दोबारा मल्टीप्लाई होने के बाद ब्लड स्ट्रीम में एंट्री करेगा तो उसको सेकेंडरी वर्मिया बोलेंगे.
perfect.
हाँ.
Yes. So after this, we can able to see signs and symptoms in the patient. So I hope you know the difference between signs and symptoms, right? Now, without seeing these slides, can you give me examples of a few viruses like respiratory virus, elementary? Can you give me examples, students, for all these 5 routes? Examples of respiratory
Sir,
virus?
the respiratory virus like coronavirus, and for elementary is polio virus.
Okay, corona, elementary polio. For genital?
जेनाइटल HIV.
So herpes virus.
Skin.
So herpes virus, HIV virus.
Very good. Hepatitis, HIV, herpes can be genital viruses. That means they're sexually transmitted diseases or viruses. Then in examples for skin,
So measles,
Smallpox.
measles,
Yes, sir.
measles and
Smallpox, yeah.
smallpox. Very good, smallpox. Then conjunctiva means they're saying conjunctiva. They're saying some viruses, right? Enteroviruses. Some enteroviruses can transmit via conjunctiva.
Virus.
And what are teratogenic viruses? What are
So rubella virus.
Okay, rubella, and there is one more, cytomegalovirus. Okay, so
Yes, cytomegalovirus.
what they will cause? What type of infection?
Sir, they will infect the mostly women fetus.
Fetus. They can cause fetal death. They may lead to
Yes.
abortions in the woman. Very good. So such viruses are called teratogenic viruses. Good. Mm, yes, that's it, students. Fine. So now you have a very solid foundation on virology. Now you know all the components that are necessary to study individual viruses. So all these are important. Okay, whatever I said till now for past 2 weeks, I'm discussing basics in virology. All these basics are very important to study individual viruses. Okay, so our role as a medical lab technologist starts not with treating a patient. Treating a patient starts for doctors. For us, lab technologists, it starts with a receiving of specimen. We will receive a specimen from the patient. We will collect a specimen from the patient. Then we are also responsible to transport the specimen into the higher laboratories. Why I'm saying this? Because usually PCR is not available in small laboratories. In BSL 1 and 2 or even in 3, usually we have only 1 and 2 labs in the city or in the urban or village areas. But to do PCR test, you must require a NABL accreditation, and you need to qualify certain criteria to have a PCR test. So that is why mostly we will transport viral specimens into a referral laboratories, state sponsored or government sponsored laboratories, and they will do the test. So that is why it is our responsibility to transport the media, to transport the viral specimen hazard freely to the laboratory. So we will collect the sample. Sometimes we will transport the sample. In the referral laboratories, we may also process the sample. During sample processing, sometimes we need to store the sample also. Okay, storage of the sample and processing of the sample. That means doing laboratory investigations on the sample. Lab investigations we already know. We know that we will go with detection of virus by immunofluorescence, cytopathic inclusion bodies, or interference, or these other tests. Or we can also go with serological tests, such as rapid tests. Rapid card tests are available for the detection of viruses. That we have a solid knowledge. But these three areas are important: proper collection of viral sample, proper transport of viral sample, and proper storage and processing of viral sample are very important. Apart from your lab investigations, if you do any mistake in the collection or in the transport, this virus may leak into the society. They may release a small epidemics. They may become a small viral outbreaks, and the community may get affected because of our irresponsibilities, our negligence, our errors can lead to a society issues. So that is why there is a method of collecting, there is a method of transporting, and there is a method of storing and processing the viral samples. Let us discuss about these three in today's lecture. Other lab diagnosis, this blue table, I need not to say much. This you already know. Direct demonstration can be done by electron, fluorescein, ELISA, or PCR test. Isolation of virus can be done in organ explant cell cultures or animal inoculation. And viral specific antibodies can be detected by rapid card tests. This we can study individually. Meanwhile, let us have an overview on collection, transport, and storage of viral sample. So a successful laboratory investigations also includes collection of adequate and appropriate specimens, gathering sufficient documentation from the patient, ensuring proper biosafety and decontamination protocols in the laboratory, properly packing the sample and transporting the sample to the labs, and timely communication of results, timely completion of the test and dispatching the reports are the important things that we need to do as a laboratory technologist. So common specimens that we can collect, including for viral diagnosis, are blood, urine, sputum, swabs, stools, pus, and CSF. Swabs including throat, nasal, ear, eye, HVS, and cervical. HVS sample. One second, let me see what is this HVS sample. Sometimes. High vaginal swabs sample. Okay, actually these are pap smears. Okay, so high vaginal sample, swab samples. So vaginal samples. Okay, high vaginal samples. So these are the specimens that we can collect. Usually, blood specimen is collected for detection of viral antibodies in the patient. So viral, rather than detection of virus in the patient, here we will detect the viral antibodies. The reason is, see, if a patient got infection is, definitely he may develop antibodies, right? And presence of those antibodies indicates that the patient got infection. So for detection of those antibodies, we will go with blood specimen. Then certain viruses can be discharged through urine. So you some STD viruses can be detected in urine sample. Respiratory viruses can be detected in sputum sample, or low respiratory tract viruses can be detected by swabs. Okay, throat swab, nasal swabs. Okay. Then rotaviruses such as enteroviruses can be detected in stool, and some skin blisters causing viruses can be detected in pus, and viruses that can cause encephalitis, brain infection can be detected in the CSF. One best example is the cytomegalovirus. Cytomegalovirus will cause brain infection, which can be detected by which can be detected in the CSF sample, cerebrospinal fluid sample. Okay. Then so specimens should be collected properly and must be collected correctly. If you are not collecting properly, then the specimens will contaminants can grow in the specimen, and specimen will be mistakenly identified, and patient may receive incorrect report and improper or harmful treatment. So labeling of specimen is also very important. So certain guidelines that need to follow during specimen collection are: avoid causing harm or discomfort to patient, obtain sufficient quantity of specimen, collect from appropriate site from the patient, obtain specimen at correct time, use appropriate devices. Always take informed consent from the patient. Only after getting approval from the patient, we should collect the specimens. Upon collection, we should label the specimens properly. After labeling the specimens, we need to transport them. These viruses can be transported in these equipments. Either you can transport in the transport medium, or you can collect samples by wooden sticks. You can also transport in a sterile leak-proof container. You can send in the ACD vials, or even in the these wooden sticks and sterile disposal gloves are personal protective equipment. And containers can be vacuum containers, leak-proof containers, or even blood ACD. This anticoagulant containers can also be used for transport of viral specimens. So as usual, need not to say much about containers. They should be leak-proof. They should be unbreakable. They should be reliable. They should not. They should be clear, and they should have a proper surface area to write with marker. So these are certain characteristics for a container, and it should be sterile. There should not be any soap or debris or any contaminants in the container. Basic things. Then same stories. Okay, so use of appropriate sample for a for a proper specimen. So viral transport media. Usually virus will be transported in a media called VTM, okay, virus transport media. So this viral transport medium will have pH, which is equivalent to the blood pH. So it contains saline solution that mimics the pH of the blood. So the pH, maintenance of pH is very important for transport of viral specimen. Okay, so I need not to say much about how to collect blood, right? You can collect from infants 2 ml, children 5 ml, adults maximum 10 ml of blood. And this is the procedure. So you know how to collect blood, right? Blood collection, you know how to collect urine sample, you know how to collect sputum samples, you know how to collect various types of nasal swabs. Okay, oro, so these are oropharyngeal swabs, nasopharyngeal swabs, and this is nasopharyngeal swab. Nasopharyngeal swab will be collected by introducing the swab directly into the nose, whereas oropharyngeal swab will be collected by introducing swab in the oral cavity of the person. And other swabs, okay, ear swabs can also be collected like this. Samples and rectal swabs, pus samples, cerebrospinal fluid can be obtained by CSF. So do I need to discuss in detail about individual procedure, students? I guess no, right?
No, sir.
No, not required. You studied these things in different subjects in detail actually. So you just have a basic idea on collection of samples, various samples from various sites of the body. How to collect urine, how to collect blood, how to collect CSF, how to collect swabs. Okay, just have a basic idea. Then this is important. This slide is very much important. Okay, I know this is boring stuff, but you must know things. At least try to remember some 4 to 5 viruses, collection of 4 to 5 viruses. So this is a specimen type, guidelines, device, transport time and temperature, and the importance of this one. Say for example, blood specimen. It need to be it need to be collected via vein puncture, and usually blood sample is collected to diagnose CMV, cytomegalovirus. Then CSF is collected for detection of Coxsackie viruses, enteroviruses, mumps, and cytomegalovirus. And this is the guidelines. This is the device. This is the transport timing. For cervical or vaginal swabs, you will do this for detection of HSV, herpes simplex viruses, and other herpes viruses. Okay, sexually transmitted viruses will be detected by cervical or vaginal swab, and these are the guidelines. And this is the transport time and temperature requirements. The conjunctiva sample is collected for detection of cytomegalovirus, herpes simplex viruses, and Coxsackie viruses. Feces samples are collected for detection of rotaviruses, enteroviruses. Then nasal swabs are preferred for detection of coronaviruses and respiratory infection causing viruses such as rhinoviruses, influenza viruses can be detected via nasal swabs. Then nasopharyngeal swabs are for detection of influenza and parainfluenza viruses. Oral swabs for detection of HSV viruses. Skin rashes for detection of pox viruses. Vesicular, okay, there are different types of skin rashes like maculopapular vesicle. These types of skin rashes I will discuss in pox virus. Okay, in pox virus lecture I will discuss about these rashes. Usually we will have different types of rashes: blisters, water containing vesicles, or pus containing vesicles. So they are classified different types. Okay. So for example, maculopapular rashes are seen for detection of pox viruses. Vesicular rashes are for detection of HSV viruses. Throat swab is performed for detection of adenovirus, CMV, SS, HSV, influenza A and B. Okay. Then tissue biopsies is obtained for detection of the level of cancer caused by the virus. For that purpose, we will take tissue biopsy. Then urethral swabs are taken for detection of CMV and HSV, cytomegalovirus and herpes simplex virus. Then urine sample is for CMV and HSV again. So these are the samples, their guidelines, and their collection and transport temperature, transport time and temperatures. So try to at least try 5 specimens. Okay, how to collect a nasopharyngeal swab, then a rectal swab, blood sample, and conjunctival sample. Okay, conjunctival swab. So this is all about transport of viral virus. Okay. Quick review of viral transport. So sample collection, sample transport, and sample storage and processing. So these are the things. It should be collected properly. It should be sent in a leak-proof container, and the collection of various types of samples. And these are the viruses. So if you memorize any 3 to 4 types of samples in this table, that is sufficient for me. So you need to do the work, students. You know, uh, it won't be appropriate if I'm just reading these slides. You already know what is there here, right? Do I need to go in detail individually, students, of all these tables? I guess not required. Right? It will take almost 4 lectures to complete this one topic. You can read by yourself, right? This viral transport. I given you the material, everything. You just go through the material, okay? So this is it.
Okay.
Yes, yes, students.
Okay, sir.
So yes, please work on this one, because see, I too have some limitations. I cannot teach everything. These are something which you can do by yourself. Okay, so that's it. Then, so summarizing, students, this is the 10 general points that we need to justify for each and every virus. The basics and fundamentals, whatever I discussed for past 2 weeks, is to summarize this table. So no matter whatever virus we are studying, we must have an idea on its introduction, its classification, its morphology. In the morphology, the virus size, shape, symmetry, number of capsomers, type of genome, presence or absence of envelope, and special viral proteins need to be discussed. And we need to discuss the virus susceptible and resistant factors. We need to discuss about isolation and cultivation of virus, how we will cultivate the virus in the animal, in the tissue, and in the cell, what cell lines you are using, what tissue cultures you are using, and what animals you are using. Then we need to discuss about its pathogenesis, mode of transmission and incubation period. Then signs and symptoms shown in the patient upon getting infection by this virus. Then we will discuss lab diagnosis that include specimen collection, transport, direct microscopic culture, cytopathic efforts, inclusion models, immunofluorescent test, molecular test, antigen detection test, and PCR. Then prophylaxis, any vaccines present for this virus or not? If there is vaccine present, what type of vaccine is it? Is it a killed vaccine or is it a live vaccine? Is it an active immunization or passive immunization? And is there any treatment to that particular virus? So if you justify these 10 points, then that will be the virology. That will be a complete virology for a individual viruses. From next week onwards, we can start with those 4 viruses, okay? Hepatitis B, HIV, and other 2 viruses. By studying those 4 viruses, we can finish Unit 1 and Unit 2, students. So this is all about today's lecture. So in today's lecture, we discussed about viral specimen collection, transport, and processing, and we also discussed about the pathogenesis of viral infection. So viral pathogenesis, the route of entry, primary replication, lymph node spreading, then primary viremia, then going to the spleen, bone marrow, liver, secondary viremia, going to the target region. Okay, so let me show you the syllabus once. long story. See here, without noticing, we finished unit 1 and unit 2 actually. So complete unit 1 has been finished by today. Okay, by today's lecture, we finished complete unit 1. We discussed about introduction, important viruses, structure, classification, replication, collection, transport, and even storage of virus has been finished. And in the unit 2, we discussed about staining techniques, which is HND staining, then egg inoculation, tissue culture we discussed. And the only thing that is pending is rapid tests for HIV, HBV, HCV, and PCR and immunofluorescence test. So my next lectures will be focused on immunofluorescence, PCR, and these 4 viruses. By this, we can finish this virology, students. So I need, I think, 3 to 4 more lectures to finish unit 1 and unit 2. Okay. So within 1 week, we can finish virology. So if you have any doubts, you can ask me, students. So far, everything clear, right? And also, all these classes are available in YouTube. If you have any doubts, you can rewatch this lecture and you will get some idea. Okay. So thank you very much. If you have any doubts, you can ask me. If not, I will end this class.
No doubt, sir. Thank you, sir.
Fine. No doubts, but when you're writing answers in the exams, then I can see. Okay, you can leave, students. Thank you very much. You can leave.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, students.